have 5 agreements with conferences that we can with them hire Bible workers, church planters to work in Muslim villages. Indonesia has more Muslims than any other country in the world, and it's the 4th largest population country in the world. So it's a huge job. The initial target is to be able to start working in each of the 25 conferences and missions in the 3 unions, with 10 Bible workers in each. That makes 250 Bible workers we want to train and put to work. The difficulties, as you can imagine, are working in a Muslim country. It's dangerous. It's life-threatening. You know of another person that we've been talking about recently in another country that works with Muslims who is in prison now. So we need prayer for this because there's a lot that needs to be done, and we'll leave more discussion about that for later. But I believe from what we see that the door really is opening up now that we've been able to make agreements with 5 different conferences and missions. So that's a very positive thing. Papua is a part of Indonesia. Papua, there's Papua New Guinea, and the other half of Papua is Papua Indonesia, or West Papua. I want to, after we landed our plane near the village of Wakidam, we started hiking up the trail to Wakidam. So I want to take you along the trail a little bit. A little spring that's coming out of the mud wall here, and stick coming out of it to direct the water. This good water, cool and refreshing. I'll tell you, it's fantastic. So we had an interesting hike going up the mountain to get to the village of Wakidam. When we got to the village, going in, found a very, very traditional, larger village. It's not like the smaller villages where there are just a few huts, but it's very large. That's the men's hut. I'll tell you about that in a minute. I don't know how many people live in the village of Wakidam, but one of the reasons that we were able to go there this time, you see everybody carrying large bundles. Those are heavy bundles. They're all full of Bibles. And the reason we were there was to be able to give a Bible, new translation of the Bible in their language for the first time ever to anybody who could read in that village. The problem is the Bible was translated by people who don't particularly like some of the things that we believe, and so things like the concept of the Sabbath and other things are completely left out. So doing our work in villages like Wakidam will be difficult. This is our school in Wakidam, and we do have Bible classes there. It's basically a government school. All of our schools in Papua are government schools. The government even builds the schools, but they can't get teachers to go and do the teaching. They hire teachers to go in and they last for a little bit of time because it's too hard for them. It's so isolated, and they can't go anywhere because it takes days to be able to hike anywhere, and the work is hard. But the government has asked us to start working in these villages. More about that later. The man on the right is named Gary Roberts. He's the director for Adventist Aviation Indonesia, the organization that we work with to be able to get to these villages. If it weren't for him and the program that he has developed and the way he has developed it, we would not be able to get to these villages. A week after I returned, after we returned from our trip, I got word that pilot Gary had just arrived back in the States, and he's been diagnosed with inoperable brain cancer. So please pray for Pilot Gary. Doc, the devil is working exceptionally hard to make sure these things don't happen. And I don't know what will happen if we don't have Pilot Gary. He is the main kingpin that keeps that program going.
Omban, dari Pak Olsen dari Pomek juga.
He speaks the local language. There are a lot of local languages. Every village has its own local language, so you have to know a lot of them. That's him. His father, Bob Roberts, started Adventist Aviation, I think 40 years ago. And just as he was getting ready to retire, he was involved in a plane crash right at their own landing strip, and he died in that crash. His son Gary took it over 10 years ago. It's a great program. They've just expanded from 2 airplanes to 6 airplanes the week after we were there, and this happens. So we need prayers. I mentioned the men's cabin. Now, if you know anything about the culture of these Papuan villages, you know that the men of the village all stay in one hut. The women stay in their own huts with their children. The men all stay in this separate hut. It's probably good for some reasons, for some things. But the women can't even see in these huts. And when the boys get to be a certain age, I don't remember how old it is, 10 or 11, something like that, the men all get together and they go to the family's hut, and they take the boy out of the hut, take him back to the men's hut, and make him a man. And it's not a pleasant experience. I've never seen the inside of a man's hut, because nobody is supposed to see in it. But I asked for permission to video inside this hut. So ladies, you're going to be among the first people in the world to ever see inside a man's hut in Papua. Not very exciting, is it? I was amazed how clean and orderly it was, quite frankly. So, a new experience that you can only get here. This year, we conducted the very first high school graduation ever in this region of Papua. This is a place, you may have heard when I spoke earlier about 1968 when 2 missionaries went into a village in Papua, and it's called Soluna, and started clearing the landing field, started talking to the people about Jesus, tried to build a landing strip so that they could get in regularly, and started church. Instead, they were killed and eaten. In that village in Soluna, and in this village of Wipon, about 2.5 years ago, we started schools in those villages. Again, they're government schools, but they're run by Gospel Outreach and Adventist Aviation. And God is doing amazing things there. Well, it was time for our first ever high school graduation service in the village of Wipon. So I'd like to share some video with you. And this fascinating stuff. This is when we were arriving. This is the welcome. She's not from there. was up in the top right corner. What a scene of chaos. In these villages, whenever there's going to be something really special, they light a big fire like this and they roast a pig. They were told there wouldn't be any pigs dying that day. And so they were roasting sweet potatoes and big pots of rice and other vegetables. And so they were having a grand time preparing this feast. There had never, ever been a high school graduation in this part of Papua, ever. So this was a very big thing. You see already right there's a group of people sitting on the grass, and you can see them in other places. I should have mentioned it. People came from about a dozen villages from as far away as 8 hours walking to come to this graduation service. We don't even know who most of them were. We've never seen them. But they heard about a graduation at a school in a village near them, and it brought them out. It was an amazing thing to see that they were sitting there waiting when we arrived. More than welcome. Wah, wah, wah. That's me. Wah, wah is a welcome. And it's like, yes, yes, wonderful, have a good day. So I speak the language. I can say wah, wah. So this is parts of the graduation. I wasn't able to take too many pictures of it because I was the main speaker and I was sitting up front. But one of the things that was
daerah kita di tempat ini. Bahkan berterima kasih juga kepada semua pemuda-pemudi yang juga mengambil bagian di dalam acara ini. Semua orang-orang tua, anak-anak, bahkan panitia yang ada yang di.
So after the graduation was over, which was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we all went up into one of the building classrooms, and there was a meal prepared for us. But I went out and looked to see what was happening on the hill. They were all still sitting there, and they had runners running from the fire pit to each different group. So a couple of ladies were